My name is Maxson. Let's talk about art. Actually, specifically bad art, which personally I feel at times I am responsible for cranking more into the world than most garage sales you've ever been to in your life combined. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a question. Have you ever heard of the painting Man with Bowtie? There it is right there. And here's everything we know about it. It was painted by Pablo Picasso in the early 20th century, and we can guess that he actually didn't like it because he painted over it. So the picture you see here actually was first taken in 2014. This is an infrared image of a canvas seeing through the existing paint. This image was created by art experts and scientists in association with the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C. If you go and see this painting in the museum with the naked eye, it is actually one of Picasso's masterpieces, The Blue Room. So this is not the first time in the art world that a discovery like this has been made where someone has painted over a draft, or if I can make the leap and almost say something that the artist thought was bad art. For instance, here's a Van Gogh. That's Patch of Grass. But when you take an infrared picture of Patch of Grass, you find this young lady. Yeah. And similarly, another Picasso, another masterwork, the very famous Crouching Beggar. And underneath Crouching Beggar is this landscape. So this concept of painting over what you might think is your bad art is not exclusive to, say, the visual arts. Ernest Hemingway rewrote the ending to A Farewell to Arms 47 times. Mozart composed concertos for 10 years before he wrote what we regard as his first major masterwork. And even more recently, Lin-Manuel Miranda spent one entire year writing My Shot from the musical Hamilton. Think about that, that's 1 year to come up with 5 minutes and 33 seconds worth of music. So I know everything I just said is a complete masterpiece, and it feels short-sighted to say that any of it was bad art. But those steps along the way, in the eyes of the artist, as you're drafting, that's what some of us call it. And I wonder what would have happened if any of those artists had stopped and when they'd been discouraged with the bad art in their process. Like, what if Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had stopped developing his character, Sherrinford Hope? Would we have ever met Sherlock Holmes? Or if the Beatles hadn't put Let It Be on a shelf and kind of walked away from that and reset and just fought through it, would we have ever gotten Abbey Road? So, I think that bad art in the creative process is actually scar tissue that you build along the way to your masterpiece. It's the stuff that takes you from nothing much to something special, and it's in that vein that I believe we should be running toward bad art instead of running away from it. So here is my personal example. I'm a writer. I got my degree in English, and so after school, I just wrote tons of stuff, whatever I could get work doing, ads, articles, songs, short stories, short films, podcasts, haiku, tweets that were also haiku, actually. But I wanted to write a novel. I wanted a new creative venture in my 30s. My only problem was I didn't know how to write a novel. So I just came up with an idea, I made an outline, and I started writing. And I wrote, and I rewrote, and I got up before everybody in our house got up in the morning, and I wrote, and I stayed up late after everyone went to bed, and I wrote, and I changed jobs, and we had a baby, and I graduated from grad school, and I kept going. And when I was finally done, I gave a copy to a published editor, who also happens to be my mother. And And I was convinced I'd created my masterpiece, but with the help of her perspective, it turns out I had not. So I rewrote it, and then I gave it to some friends, I collected their feedback, and I rewrote it again, and then I gave it to another editor, someone not related to me. It's fine, and I rewrote it again. And finally, it got released as an ebook, did pretty well for an independent book, and about a month later, I reread the first chapter, and I hated it. It was horrible. So I rewrote it. Even after I'd put it out in the world, I rewrote it. And that's when I realized that I was running away from my bad art. I was failing to see that it was a crucial part of my wider creative process. So as soon as it got published in print, I let it stay and I never rewrote it again. But here's the important part. I took the lessons that I learned during that process, the lessons I learned about actually how to write a novel, about my own creative process, about language that I use, like even down to the sentence and the syntax, and I applied that to my second novel. And that second novel took less than half the amount of time to write, and by pretty much every measure, artistically and commercially, it wound up being better. So I never would have been able to do it had I not created some of my bad art first, or I never even could have done it had I not created some bad art first. So here is my big point. I think that this idea that you can take bad art in your creative process does not have to be exclusive to a creative process. It doesn't even have to be exclusive to the arts. I think that that idea can be applied anywhere in life. So here's my big takeaway, and it's so important that I actually wrote it on a slide. No matter what your job is, it doesn't matter, or what mundane task that might be mundane to you or important to somebody else, anything small you're doing in your life, no matter what it is you do in the world, do it as if you were an artist. And so what I mean by that is no matter what your job is, what you're trying to get done, put the power of self-expression behind that. If you have the time, take the time to craft, to build, to analyze, to fail even, if needed. And if you apply that principle of chasing bad art, letting it spur you on to any aspect in your life, I can't promise I know what's going to happen, but here's an educated guess. 1, you'll probably be better at it. 2, you'll probably be more proud of the outcome. And if those two happen, you'll probably get positive results. So no matter what the bad art is in your life, I say chase it, spur it on, let it spur you on, let it build into a foundation on which you can create skills and your vision, because we've even seen that the greatest geniuses of all time haven't painted their masterpieces until they had something to paint over first. So that's it. Go and make your bad art, because if you don't, the world may never get to see your good art. Thank you.